Hello and welcome to episode 37 of Aico TV. We've got a brand new look for you, ready for the new year. I'm Holly Moore, Marketing Executive here at Aico.
And I'm Matt Powell, Marketing Executive.
So let's see what we've got in store for you today.
So first up this month, we have part 2 of our structural versus environmental webinar.
Next, we're going to take a look at Aico's brand new sustainability programme.
And to finish this off, we're going to have an events update and a CSR update. So for our first section in this episode, we're going to rejoin our webinar. Last month's episode went over part 1, and in this episode, we're going to go over the Q&A section, which was particularly lively. Our colleagues at HomeLINK are basically going to answer all your questions on all the new feature of our structural versus environmental feature. Let's see how they got on.
So we're going to jump into the Q&A section now. We've already got a few questions on the Q&A. Surprisingly, given there's about 300 people currently attending, not a huge number, we have got a few, and I've got some general ones that we get frequently asked when we're speaking to people. So we've got those as well, which I think will have probably questions that people are thinking. So the first question is very easy, so I can answer that, which is, can I please have a copy of this presentation at the end? From Lucy. So this actual webinar will go onto Aico TV, so on the Aico TV YouTube channel in about a month, but we'll be able to share this, the actual presentation itself. And like I said, if you've got the portal, you'll be able to access Zendesk, and there's a lot more information about this insight, how to use it, and how it's constructed. I think with all our insights, we give information on the portal about what makes them up, because it's really important information when a customer is trying to analyze their data to understand what it really is trying to say. So that's the first question. So the next question is, in the winter, when is the best time to ventilate via windows? Tenants often reluctant because of cold temperatures. How long should you ventilate via windows during colder months? It can be hard to explain in order to allow adequate ventilation. That's from Stuart. I'll give this one to Tom.
Yeah, sure. I think with mechanical ventilation, that should be your first port of call during the winter, because we know that it's quite unpleasant, the cold temperatures, so you don't want to open your windows to make your room unnecessarily cold. But I think you have to be situationally aware. You don't want condensation occurring on your walls. So if you are having a shower or something where it gets really wet on the walls, then you'd use your windows at that time.
I think to add to that as well is there's a expectation that opening the window is going to result in a massive drop in temperature internally. What we actually see happening is that heat is stored within the walls of the building and of the room rather than the air itself. So you can swap that air out for fresh air, and the temperature won't drop as dramatically as expected, because the walls will heat that new air up really quite rapidly. You only need to have a window open for 5-10 minutes to have a really big impact on your humidity levels. So you were quite right in the question when you said tenants are quite often against opening the windows, but I think it's about access to the HomeLINK app, for example, which will help with that guidance as to opening a window just for a short period can have a significant impact without necessarily dropping the temperature as much as you'd expect.
I'd say windows are probably a bit of a fail-safe solution that you'd only use in quite exceptional circumstances, because if you lower the temperature of a room, that's actually going to increase the relative humidity. So unless there's something exceptional, like exceptional levels of humidity you want to ventilate, you want to rely on mechanical ventilation.
Yeah, that makes sense. It kind of reminded me of a couple of things there as well. One is a lot of people that look at, because we have the outside weather data as well on the portal for information, so the temperatures and things as a landlord outside. But crucially, we also use that, as you guys will know, to sort of develop the insights. So you can understand the sort of thermal efficiency of the fabric and things like that. What's sometimes people get confused with is quite often the outside, we show relative humidity, and quite often the outside relative humidity is really high, much higher than inside. So what people assume is that if you open a window, you'll increase the humidity inside. And sometimes that is the case. But the thing to consider with relative humidity is if you take that external air and then raise it to the temperature of the indoor environment. So for example, once you've opened the window, you get some cold air in that's initially of a high humidity, relative humidity. Once that air then heats up to the sort of room temperature, that relative humidity will drop significantly. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind, because I know a lot of people have sort of been confused around that. Having said that, there's a lot of factors that we hear. We speak to probably more residents, or definitely more residents than we speak to landlords for different reasons. Clearly, with the resident app, we're constantly having feedback on that product. And there's other factors as to why they wouldn't open a window in certain times. We know, a classic example that always sticks in my mind was a resident who was using the app, basically getting frustrated that they had quite high humidity. They said it was because they were drying a lot of clothes inside. They didn't want to open the windows because they were on the ground floor of a flat, so they didn't really want to leave them open for long periods of time. So they didn't really have much choice from their perspective, and they got quite frustrated. They eventually bought a condenser dryer, which completely solved the problem and reduced the risk. That's not necessarily a solution that you can say to every resident, because it costs money to buy a condenser dryer and it costs money to run it. But yeah, that's just the kind of sort of challenges maybe that residents are faced with, which I think is important to know as a sector. We've actually recently published some data we've done around our tenant research, and I think we'll continue to do that, because I think it's just useful for the sector to have it, and even if it's not, why not share it? So next question, how many sensors do you install in a home? Jordan, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so typically we'd see 3 or 4 within a property. So the traditionally wet room, so the kitchen and bathroom, they're an obvious choice. Then the living room as one of the most occupied rooms within a building is very high up there as well. But we're seeing more and more of these sensors going to bedrooms as well. There's specific legislation in Scotland that's sort of steering that as well. But yeah, so typically we're seeing 3, sometimes 4 as well, sometimes more. You can have as many as you like, really. There's no limit. We don't set a limit on how many sensors you can have. It's completely up to you, but they're what we typically tend to see.
Yeah, that makes sense. The next question is, I thought our sensors measured CO2 as well, and I mentioned this. I'll answer this one. So yeah, we've got 2 versions of it. So you've got 1020 and a 1025. The 1025 measures carbon dioxide as well. For those that would be unfamiliar with why we have that type of sensor, I think probably something like 80% of the sensors that are fitted currently are the 1025 version with CO2. CO2 is basically the kind of standard for measuring indoor air quality or ventilation. You can obviously get some ventilation factors that we can assess just looking at sort of gradients of humidity and things like that, which to some extent Tom has talked about. But yeah, indoor air quality is really useful for a number of factors. Obviously, the CO2 sensor is really useful for a number of factors. Indoor air quality is a big one, and that ventilation, enhanced sort of ventilation understanding is another key one. I think it's really valuable from a resident point of view. Obviously, talking about a damp and mould insight here, the sort of our 3rd generation of this insight. But damp and mould, the reason it's kind of included in the Homes Act in terms of making sure homes are free from it, it isn't because it's an ugly thing. It's because it affects your health significantly. It's the spores of the mold that affect your health. But actually, it's the reason people are so concerned with it is because it's visible, and you can see that it's there, and it's going to affect your health. And it's a factor in terms of indoor air quality. But there are many other factors that there's particular matter. PM 2.5 is one of the key ones linked to prevalence of dementia to a very large extent. We know levels of PM 2.5 get very high. Even high levels of CO2 itself would suggest that. High humidity levels increase the prevalence of dust mites, which produce a sort of PM 2.5, and this has huge knock-on health impact. So damp mold's a major challenge, but from a sort of resident health point of view, all of that stuff's really important as well, and that's what we try and talk about, because at the end of the day, we need to do this for compliance reasons, but compliance is there to try and improve, make sure people are living in healthy and safe environments, and the indoor air quality aspect of that, and the other factors that are invisible, we know from the research has just as much of an impact. So another one here: how accurate are the scores, SvE scores? Tom, did you want to mention something on this?
Yeah, sure. So the components have all been stress tested under the hood on a large number of properties and several big projects. I think we've tested on about 1,000 properties, and what we find is they're all really well correlated with the mold risk insight itself, which has been validated in other projects. So what this means is that each component in itself is an accurate predictor of mold. I think it's fair to say that, you know, in any statistical model, there will be exceptions and outliers. So maybe a good analogy sometimes for this feature is a weather forecast. So when a weather forecast, which is like a historical mapping of data to a future environmental prediction, says that there is a 90% risk of rain, it might not rain, but it'd be pretty sensible generally to use that information.
And take an umbrella with you.
And take an umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think I think that's key. And in terms of the development of this, we've obviously, like I said, been developing it for about 9 months, I think. We've been trialing it with a group of landlords, different surveyors, to sort of get their view on it. And we've also got, and as I said, we've now just released this to everybody. But over time, you know, clearly we're going to be continuously getting feedback on these insights and getting those labels to sort of feed into the machine learning aspect of it to sort of continuously improve accuracy. But anecdotally, you know, the feedback we've got from people that have used it, and you know, even if I'm just looking at it on my home, it's surprising how you know, it kind of confirms in some ways things you already know, but then also gives you things you hadn't really thought about that could make a big difference. So hopefully, you know, it will make a big difference.
And I'd add to that, Chris, that, you know, we know what we're looking at as well. So we know what we're expecting to see when we're looking at this analysis, because we understand the fundamentals of damp and mold. So people that don't necessarily, this is going to be a fresh set of information for them to use when they're going out into these properties.
Yeah, exactly. One here from Timothy Walker. So will this video be from the YouTube site? Yes, as I mentioned just previously, it was going to be on the Aico TV channel. Is putting radiators on external window walls a good idea or bad? That's an interesting question. Yeah, Tom, you maybe have a think about that one.
Well, yeah, just off the top of my head, windows are hotspots for mold because they get colder than walls, generally are less good at keeping the heat out. And so an external radiator there would help with the heat. So that would, yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. Not a structural engineer, but sounds sensible.
Yeah, I think that's one to, I mean, to be honest, that's one to sort of, you know, being able to use the data we have. You know, we're able to collect energy data from smart meters now at quite a low price, and we'll be releasing that product in the beginning of next year. But yeah, again, you know, if you've got that energy data, how much energy is being used, what the sort of room characteristics are, then you'll be able to analyze homes that do have, you know, that kind of layout versus ones that don't, and understand the difference. I mean, sort of off the top of your head, based on the physics of it, as Tom said, you know, those external walls obviously have a lower surface temperature. So unless they're, you know, well insulated, you're going to have a lower surface temperature relative to the other walls that aren't external, because you've got a higher heat gradient through that wall, and that lower, which correlates to that lower surface temperature. And a lower surface temperature means that the humidity in the air will cause condensation, which will cause the mold risk or mold to form. Radiators and things on that wall will probably, you know, artificially increase the temperature of that surface. But I imagine there's probably some other kind of knock-on effects around, you know, having your heat source on that wall might, you know, there might be additional energy inefficiency for doing that. It's difficult to say off the top of my head, but it'd be interesting to look at the data there.
Yeah, it would. What I would say though is that I imagine that it would also help increase your ventilation, because you've got a source of heat, which and heat rises, generates that movement within the air. So you might have some circulation within the room that around that window, which, as Tom was saying, is an issue.
Yeah. Do the sensors use residence Wi-Fi? It's an easy one, Jordan.
No, not at all. We have the SmartLink gateway, the EI1000G, which has a roaming SIM in the back of it. So no, we do not use any of the residence Wi-Fi. It's fully on the mobile telecom network.
Yeah, would it be beneficial to close all doors whilst cooking or running baths, etc., to hold condensation in each room where fans are fitted? Go on, Tom.
Assuming the mechanical ventilation is adequate for the amount of humidity that's being released in excess, seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I think the key there is that if you've got you know, really good mechanical ventilation that's being used, that will obviously have an impact. On the app, there are recommendations around what you can do to reduce those humidity, but clearly the key here is, regardless of what that underlying cause is, you know, the landlord needs to kind of take a proactive approach there, you know, in any way they can. Yeah, I mean, again, this is why having multiple sensors in different rooms is really useful, because you can quite often see, and clearly the bathrooms, one of the leading factors. Sometimes the kitchen, depending on the makeup of the home and things. But you quite often see humidity much higher in one room than another one, and high humidity in that room does correlate to sort of increased throughout the property. So even prior to having the SvE insight, people were using that multiple room, the surveyors were using that multiple room information to sort of target where interventions would be, or to sort of focus on, when they visit, to sort of further analyse it, where they would kind of spend the time looking. We did have a landlord, I think we released a case study recently, I think it was Grand Union, and prior to this insight even, they're quite early in adopting these sensors. And I think quite early on they made, they changed their ventilation specification completely based on the sensor data that we had. And I know they were using, they had quite a few sensors around the home using multiple room sensors.
Yeah, I think that the added to that as well is that, being able to see the raw humidity data on the portal, as well as all the analysis that we've got now with the structural versus environmental, means that you can sort of have a look at what is going on when these sort of situations occur. So I know one of our colleagues, Amrita, for example, is working with a resident at the moment on understanding why their structural or environmental issue is coming from, and that resident has been fantastic in letting us know when doors have been closed or open to certain rooms, and we're then correlating that with what we're seeing on the portal, and that's helping our understanding as to what's going on within that particular home. So the combination of working with the resident and the data from the portal is vital.
Yeah, I think these questions about radiators and shutting the doors, they're quite nuanced because they depend on the context of the room. But what you can do then is use the data to see actually which one is better.
Yeah, that's key. I think on that resident side as well, one of the things that we've got back from residents and landlords is the idea of having a messaging feature via the resident app, which we're working on at the moment, and again should be first quarter of next year for release, hopefully, optimistically. And one of the interesting things that means is having that communication. Even just in tackling this problem, we're already looking at. The insight's pretty good in terms of accuracy of what we've already got, but getting that positive feedback, from a resident, for example, if they were able to take a picture of an issue of mould, so to get that confirmation, what it is, what room it's in, what the cause is, and everything else, again, saves someone that time in terms of that visit. They can do some analysis before the visit, so it reduces the number of visits as well. What is the best way to treat existing mould due to condensation? It's from an anonymous person.
So the most common source of mould in the UK is called Stachybotrys, and the best way to treat that is at cause, probably with sprays to kill it completely, because there's two levels of humidity that you need to take into account, and one is the germination threshold for when the mold spores are actually going to start germinating, and the other is the activation or the activity threshold. The difference there is when a spore, which can basically be sort of like as the source of a mold thing, wants to start growing in the first place, it has to germinate, it has to release. You'll only do that when the humidity levels is really high. So for Stachybotrys, it's 90%. So this is why mold itself is prejudiced against basically the have-nots of the built environment, because the activity threshold is the threshold of humidity you need for the mold to keep growing once it's germinated in the first place. And if that humidity level isn't met, to use like the volcano terminology, the mold will go dormant. So what you need to do then, because the activity threshold is so much lower than the germination threshold, is make sure there's no germination in the first place. And so that would be killing it at source with chemical sprays.
Yeah, I suppose to like add on top of that as well, the key thing here is, the thing that's unhealthy, and the thing that there's an obligation to do is to remove the mold itself. So that's obviously the first step. And once you've done that, you're not getting the spores, or you're getting a lot less in terms of the sort of air in the room, so it'd instantly be healthier. The challenge is, particularly in those really hard homes, is how quickly is that going to come back? And if anyone in their own homes, or people that are familiar with those kind of same problem properties, is that you'll go there, you'll do what whatever you think's the right thing. In many cases, removing part of the wall and all those kind of things, cleaning it, is that it can come back very quickly, and that could be. And the key thing in terms of what's going to make it come back or not is what we're trying to achieve with this. It's that underlying issue. So, is it because there's a leak? Is it because there's sort of penetrating damp? Is it because the ventilation's not adequate for the room, like it is in my bathroom, annoyingly, which needs to get sorted? Is it because ventilation's not being used? Is it because someone's in fuel poverty and the home's always cold? So there's so many different underlying factors which will increase the rate in which it kind of grows back. That you need to treat that underlying. Obviously, treat the cause first, and then sort of treat the underlying issue. Clearly having a room with no mold in it, no spores, but a high risk level just suggests that there's going to be a problem down the line. But right now, it doesn't mean it's unhealthy. It just just means it's high humidity and things like that. It could be unhealthy from a sort of indoor air quality point of view because you could have an increased prevalence of dust mites and things. But from a mold point of view, it's only unhealthy when you've got the spores and everything there.
Just the final thing to add on to that is you need to look at the whole property, because the mold spores, if they're growing in one room, are more likely then to travel and settle in another room. So you need to make sure that if you're going to tackle any issues, you tackle them everywhere that mold could grow.
Yeah. Next one, what is the maximum number of people that should sleep in overnight in one room? Overcrowding can cause mold, excess condensation in some situations. I mean, that's again, there's many factors that can be this underlying cause. It's really hard to answer that kind of question because obviously it depends on the sort of size of the room. And I think I remember seeing like one of the earlier on in the year, I was on BBC. A resident's home was there's a camera going around it, and it was sort of a call out on this really this home that had sort of molds everywhere and things. And I noticed on the video that there was two bunk beds in a very small room in this flat, and that was obviously where the kids were sleeping, and there was a really big problem with mold, and it's likely that a lot of that humidity is created from that kind of overcrowding. So again, tackling that root cause, if you've got a very large family in a very small space, just from sort of like the humidity that you create, but also if you're cooking for more people or everything else, you're going to increase that risk. So yeah, that's something that to tackle that issue you need to do. Again, it's hard to say what's the maximum number of people. Again, it's one of those things where looking at the data would really help, because it's less about the number and the size of the room and everything. And there's so many other factors at play, and actually just being able to see, okay, well, the underlying cause is this, and you've got very high humidity levels in these times, then it gives you that insight into what might be the solution to that problem. Potentially rehousing them and moving a smaller family into that flat if it's a very small flat, for example.
I think trickle vents as well could be really beneficial in that scenario as well, just because as that humidity does start to build up overnight, at least there is an opportunity for it to dissipate as well. It's got an opportunity to leave that room as well. So again, it goes back to ventilation, whether it be mechanical or trickle vents or an open window can really help in that scenario. But yeah, there is still a root cause there.
Yeah. So the next question: are the sensor devices suitable for installation in bathroom, shower room? The answer is yes, but clearly, you don't want to get like water on them, so not in the shower itself, kind of in the room where the humidity is. They can be installed on the ceiling. They've been designed in that way, so they're still accurate in terms of data, or the wall. Is the system available to purchase a private domestic? You can be done that. We've got a lot of private landlords that use it as well. So our focus is mostly social. Well, it's basically entirely social housing. We've got a lot of other industries that have started deploying it, whether it's schools, hospitals. We even had a conversation with the NHS, a trust recently that wanted to put the gateway in and sensors in their ambulances, because they've got that power source. And the NHS are really interested in making sure. It's really important to have. Again, it's about the healthiness of that condition and making sure that the ambulances themselves have that good indoor air quality. A use case that I never would have imagined it being used for. How do you collect temperature from outside the home as part of your deployment or another way? Go on, Tom.
We use an API to connect to publicly available data from a range of different weather stations. So basically, we get it as local as is available to the public.
There's something like 30,000 weather stations across the UK. So using the geolocation of the property, we can identify which is the nearest weather station, and we collect the data from there.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just kind of add to that. A lot of what we're trying to make a product that can be rolled out across an entire stock. So luckily, Aico sort of has that supply chain and manufacturing capabilities and installers that are able to that are trained to install alarms and things that can easily install these sensors. Makes it easy. But again, a lot of this stuff really for us is about this is a cost sensitive sector. We need to keep costs as low as possible. We know that if we brought out a sensor, for example, that you could add to the external of a property, and the sort of improvement in accuracy around that information is quite minimal. What we've seen compared to the weather stations being very local, and the sort of additional cost of doing that as a landlord is relatively high, and we feel like the business case isn't there for a landlord to do that, although they might want to do that on smaller kind of projects or kind of showcase projects and things. Is the external wall insulation going to present its own challenges? Let's move on for Tom. Or internal, of course.
Or internal. I mean, what we would hope to see from any type of installation, whether it's cavity wall, internal or external, is a reduction in the heat loss, an improvement of the thermal efficiency, and that's going to lead to less heat being lost through that surface, through that wall to the outside world, which is going to help maintain that surface temperature that we were talking about. And if the surface temperature is stable and fairly, a nice level, then you're going to be less likely to have condensation forming because it doesn't drop to below the dew point of the air within the room.
I wonder if the question was trying to get at, when you install a tighter quality of fit to a building in terms of its thermal performance, do you have detriments in terms of ventilation capacity?
Yes.
And generally with new builds, that is an issue that we see. So you've got to have things like air bricks maintaining the level of ventilation.
Or mechanical ventilation again. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think if it's done correctly, then it's a good thing. And again, in developing these sensors, half of the reason that people are buying it, half the value is in this area, which is why we've got a third generation of this insight, because this has always been a really key thing that landlords have been interested in. The other main reason for these sensors is the sustainability, retrofit monitoring and evaluation. These sensors, temperature, humidity, CO2, are mentioned in PAS 2035. And again, it's about understanding the performance of a property that's gone through that retrofit process. I think if you've got insulation, done well and correctly, it will again lower that internal surface temperature and reduce the risk. And that's one of the SvE characteristics will kind of point to whether that's an issue or not. We're pretty much run out of time, so I'm just quickly reel off a few really quick, easy questions to answer, but we'll get back to them for the rest of it. From Michelle, is your platform open API? Does all the data stay with you? Yeah, it's fully open. If you've got our platform already, you can go onto Zendesk where you find more information about this and all of our other insights. And we've got a developers section. So there's a number of, I think there's 6 different types of integrations. You've got APIs where you can connect to your existing system, so you can sort of automate resident start and end dates, so they can get the resident app, automate resident app usage. We've also got a messaging system. I'm going to get it wrong.
MQTT.
MQTT messaging system. So all of the raw data and everything can be passed straight into your platform. We've got one customer who's already scaled up to about 3,000-4,000 connected homes, which is a local authority, and they've got a smart city platform, which they use they've got some LoRaWAN gateways, and they've got data coming in via that into their platform. And it's really important to them that they collect all of the data from the housing team who are using our dashboard and gateways and everything for their own needs, compliance, and in these cases. But they really wanted to collect all that data at the smart city level. So we've got that system set up. So fully integrated. We're not holding this data. There's no reason why we would need to do that or want to do that. Is a dehumidifier beneficial for a resident couple to run it? Yeah, I think it would be in some cases. Again, in terms of being able to afford to run it or buy it, it's much like that case with the condenser dryer. There is an argument in cases where there's really significant problems that the landlord could make that business case decision of would we save money over time as a landlord in this case where something like that would solve the problem, and then you could potentially do it, which sounds crazy, but actually we've already seen it on the smoke and CO side. So Barnet Homes, they've rolled out 5,000-6,000 gateways already. They've got carbon monoxide in all of those properties. There was one home where there was this real life near miss of this resident who didn't realise they're being poisoned by CO, but the alert that the landlord got, they're able to intervene. They didn't recognise that the alarm from the CO wasn't smoke and it was coming from the cooker. They actually intervened and just bought them a whole new cooker, even though sort of technically they wouldn't have to do that. But again, it was kind of about life safety, and it's something that they decided to do. So there are cases where landlords might go above and beyond to intervene. Our sensors, batteries or mains or combination. Sensors themselves, again, we've optimized for social housing. These sensors were originally made for that. So they last 10 years, no battery replacement. Once you've fitted them, 10 years from that point, you connect them to a gateway using QR codes. It's really easy. And that gateway also connects to the existing Aico smoke and CO alarms, which for no additional cost. So you've got the kind of business case side of smoke and CO compliance there as well. Smaller private landlords, we've got smaller private landlords, mentioned that earlier. We've got people using that already. How many would you set up for a 2-bed flat, 3-bed flat, for example? It kind of really depends on the landlord. The average is 3 sensors per home, as Jordan was saying, but we've got some that have got 2. We've got some that have, I've seen some with 7 or 8, and I guess they're probably sustainability projects, but it really varies. 3 is quite a solid average, though, is what the vast majority of people do, seemingly depending on whichever. Okay, I think we'll come back. So what we'll do is we'll get all of these questions together, and we'll send out an email, with some answers to them for the rest of them. Appreciate we've run over, and just to sort of say finally, thanks to Jordan and Tom, partly for making the insight, but also for talking through it today, and thanks for everyone's time to come and see this webinar about this insight. We've got a lot of new stuff that's coming next year, where we're optimizing our database at the moment, so that the dashboard is going to be ultra responsive, and it's going to open the door to some really exciting new features. And we've got the smart meter aspect, and a bunch of other things coming next year. So we'll keep these up. We'll keep opening them out. Normally we just do it to our own portal users, our own customers, but I think we'll just open them up to everybody, because hopefully there's been some information here today that is useful to anybody, regardless of whether they're using our products or competitors. So we'll keep doing that. And finally, we're just going to, if you want more information, clearly just speak to your local RSM. You'll be able to get on a call with one of us, if you want to. And finally, we're just going to go to finish the webinar with a quick video to talk about some of the kind of core challenge areas that we're solving with our current technology. So again, thanks for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
HomeLINK is a multi-award-winning, high-tech system that leverages cutting-edge home integration and analytics technologies to address the needs of social landlords like you and your residents. Our goal is to accelerate the uptake of advanced technology in social housing to help and solve some of society's most serious challenges. This is a problem that can cause serious health risks to the resident, as well as serious financial implications for you. Claims and complaints can lead to compensation, legal fees, and reputational damage. Using leading environmental sensors, our algorithms use temperature and humidity data to identify individual rooms that may have a developing issue and the exact underlying causes, whether it's structural or environmental, before it's too late. We are helping you hit climate targets for reducing emissions and increasing thermal efficiency. By monitoring and evaluating the performance of retrofit projects, we can help you stay compliant and reach your net zero goals. Installed across a portfolio of homes, our devices can identify the best and worst performers, allowing you to direct your efforts in the right place at the right time. By legislation, landlords check that a fire safety system is compliant once every 12 months. That means, for the rest of the year, a resident's life may be in danger. The HomeLINK app prompts residents to complete monthly tests, which improves fire safety compliance, reassuring everyone. HomeLINK allows remote visibility of fire and CO devices, including alarms activations, non-compliance, unsafe homes and effective management of the life of your assets. Equip yourselves with the best tools to face these challenges head-on. Contact your local, expert, regional specification manager today.
So thank you to everyone who joined us for our webinar in November, particularly Chris, Tom and Jordan. Now we're going to take a look at our HomeLINK advert.
We're all used to smart devices, but what about smart homes? Aico with HomeLINK wants to make all housing smarter. And within these smart homes, we want to put your well-being first. But how does it work? And why would you want a smart connected home? By deploying a suite of sensors and alarms throughout a property, a variety of factors such as temperature, humidity, and carbon dioxide can be measured. Your fire, smoke, and carbon monoxide alarms will also be linked and monitored. This data is then funneled through powerful algorithms, delivering your home's health checks straight to the HomeLINK app. Insights like these will enable you to live a safer, healthier life, but also be more efficient and aware of potential knock-on effects. For example, you'll be notified if a particular room is at risk of mould, or perhaps if dust mite allergens are present. You'll also know if the indoor air quality is affecting your productivity, pre-existing health conditions, or if it's dangerously cold. And much, much more. Previously, you'd be in the dark. But with HomeLINK, you'll discover these things early and be able to counter them before they even become an issue. It could be as simple as opening a window. The HomeLINK Resident app puts you in control of the health and well-being of your home and family, so that you're empowered to take the first steps before needing your landlord to step in.
So next up, we're going to be taking a look at our brand new sustainability programme. So as you're probably aware, corporate social responsibility has been a huge focus for Aico since 2018. But to meet our NetZero target by 2030, we are putting sustainability at the forefront of the programme. And our new sustainability leads, Lily Ellis and Ryan Evans, are going to guide us through our new plan. So we'll take a look at what they've got to say now.
Hi everybody, my name's Ryan. This is my colleague Lily. We are Aico's new sustainability leads, and we're going to talk to you today about where the sustainability programme at Aico is going.
So we can see here what the programme will look like from now on, and we've kind of developed a 5-tier approach to sustainability. So starting with workplace, that's all about our colleagues' development, whether it be well-being or qualifications. Then we've got marketplace, which is all about our supply chain. And then our community work is still kind of the main focus of the programme, sitting in the middle there with our support to charity, volunteering and schools. And then environment is obviously a huge factor of the programme, with our target to be net zero by 2030. And then governance is just all about being a good professional business.
We've used the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to model our programme. So there's 17 of these goals. As you can see, they cover a wide range of things. They're one of the first things that appeared when we searched sustainability, and we thought if the UN have developed these, then it's something that we should be following as well. As you can see below, Aico in the community actually reaches 8 of the 17 goals, and they're really helpful to sort of benchmark our progress and where we're headed.
So we're going to go through each pillar in a bit more detail now to get a feel of what we're trying to achieve in each area. So as you can see, workplace adheres to Sustainable Development Goal 3 and 4. So really it's all about supporting our colleagues with their well-being. So this year we'll kind of launch a new well-being programme which will focus on physical and mental health, but also financial well-being and all those types of things. We're also very much supporting colleague development. So we have an internal learning and development manager, and we're developing things all the time which can support colleagues in this area. We have an apprenticeship programme that's been running since 2018, and we're always kind of pushing people to search for innovative ways to kind of boost themselves in the workplace.
So the second pillar of the new Aico in the Community programme is the marketplace pillar. Using this pillar, we'll be looking at local spend with businesses in the Shropshire area where possible, and we also keep an approved suppliers list. Basically, we'll look for people's sustainable credentials, etc., when we're looking to do business with new companies, and ensure that their goals align with our own, and really just trying to also educate other businesses as well, and help them to implement their own sustainable practices and help them achieve their goals and even just set goals as well.
And then next, we've got community. So this is very much kind of the work that we've been doing for a long time now, and kind of, I'd say, the bread and butter of what Aico is known for locally. So we support schools in a big way. So we go to schools, attend their careers events and things like that, but we also host them here. So that's from Key Stage 2 up until college, and we've even supported some universities in the past. And then we always are building relationships with charities, providing them with donations, but also kind of searching for new ways to support them. So this has included giving them storage space and giving them marketing support, so if that's filming a video or helping them with their website. We have lots of ways our colleagues can support charities. Staff also get involved with fundraising. So we love a good office fundraiser where we might dress up or do some kind of activity which can raise money for a charity, which is always great fun. And then volunteering, so everyone in the company has got 4 days to volunteer within their community, and we try and make sure that we're making the most out of those days and supporting charities that really need it with whatever they need, really. And then this year, we're focusing on support for children. So normally we choose a charity of the year, but this year we've gone for something a bit different. So we're kind of looking at these areas around education, well-being, food, clothing especially for young people in the area, because it's such, a big kind of focus at the moment, or it should be, for the government and things. So doing our bit and seeing where we can help and making sure the kids are getting what they need.
The fourth pillar is the environmental pillar. I think this is probably the biggest change from Aico in the community as we kind of knew it before. So we've set a very ambitious goal to be net zero by 2030. And Lily and my role now is to kind of really drive Aico towards that and make sure that we're hitting targets. Again, it's safeguarding the environment and really responding to the climate emergency. We now have a load of solar panels up on the roof, so using green energy and things like that to power our headquarters. And again, promoting biodiversity as well is a massive part of the environmental pillar. So our 4 acres of landscape gardens really helps us towards that. An example of some of the changes we're going to be implementing is we're definitely looking at electric vehicles. As you can see from our 2022 baseline, our emissions, 52% of our emissions came from transport fuel. So the obvious course of action there is to change to electric vehicles, and that will completely remove that almost. So again, depending on infrastructure and how the market moves, from 2025 we've committed to purchase fully electric vehicles from then onwards. So we'll be changing the entire fleet to fully electric vehicles.
And then finally, we've got governance. So not really any changes kind of here, because this is kind of just what our colleagues are doing day in and day out. We're going to be maintaining our ISO accreditations in various areas and making sure we're promoting ethics and transparency, and overall just kind of being a good business and doing things properly.
Thank you very much for listening. If you need any more information, then please head to the website.
So thank you to Ryan and Lily for guiding us through our new programme. It's great to see the plans that they've put in place for the future of Aico and for the work that we're going to be doing within our community. So next up, we're going to go to our events coordinator, Olivia Rose, who's going to talk to us about all the events that we've got coming up in the future.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm the events coordinator here at Aico. So some of the events we're going to next month include the CEF Tech Talks, ranging from Belfast all the way to Scotland and down to Cheltenham, where our regional specification managers will be talking through any of the new legislations that have come in and going over what they include. We'll also be attending the Meet the Lecturer events, which run in conjunction with Spark's Learner of the Year competition, where the regional specification managers will be giving a presentation to some university and college lecturers, telling them all about Aico. We will also be attending the Northern Housing Festival and Awards Show, and the return of the Northern Ireland Fire Safety Panel Conference, which is the first since 2020, so that's exciting.
So thank you to Olivia there for running us through all the events we've got coming up. Now we're going to head over to Lily Ellis, our sustainability lead, who's going to run us through all our corporate social responsibility initiatives for 2023.
Hi, I'm Lily, one of Aico's sustainability leads. I'm just going to give you a quick overview on last year as well as what's going to happen this year. So 2022 was a really good year for corporate social responsibility and sustainability. So in terms of the areas that we focus on, I'll start with education. So we actually supported over 2,900 students last year, which was 50 educational visits with over 20 schools. So that was both here, as well as going out to schools and making sure we're raising awareness about job roles, as well as promoting fire safety, which is obviously very important to us. Charity is obviously a huge area that we focus on. So my colleagues actually fundraised over £13,000 last year, which was absolutely fantastic to see. And then Aico added to that with donations of over £180,000. A bit more on our charity of the year. So Little Stars provides baby bundles for mums and their children, and now they're actually going into the realm of school uniforms. So as our charity of the year for 2022, we provided them with storage. So they have a big storage facility in our office that they can use, obviously completely free of charge. We actually gave them over £30,000 in donations last year and fundraising of over £1,000 by colleagues. And our marketing manager, Alex, is actually a trustee on their board. So it's great to see colleagues getting involved with charities and giving their expertise where they can. We actually volunteered over 297 hours with Little Stars last year as well, which was fantastic. A bit more on volunteering. So as a whole, my colleagues volunteered over 1,600 hours. So this was various things across the country, both in Shropshire and in various places. So this was things such as decorating schools, working in a community kitchen, the list goes on and on and on. So that was amazing to see. And then finally, in terms of business enterprise, we supported over 30 businesses. So maybe that was with sponsorship or use of our facilities in our Centre of Excellence and things like that. So this year, we've got some really exciting things coming up. So we have the Snowdon Sunrise Challenge in support of the Movement Centre this year. So that will be 60 colleagues walking up and down Snowdon to see the sunrise and raising some money for just an amazing cause that really needs some help. We've also got our festival coming up this year. So again, that's in support of the Movement Centre as well as our charity of the year last year, Little Stars. So that will just be a really fun day for colleagues and their friends to get involved, raise some money and just have a good time overall. And then we're actually doing some canoeing this year as well. So that will be in support of Lincoln Davis Cancer Fund, who are based in Shrewsbury. So that will be 60 colleagues canoeing 12 miles with a little stop for lunch, thankfully. And then again, raising some money for an excellent cause. So that's what's coming up this year, and I hope you follow us along for everything that's going to happen.
So thank you for joining us on the first episode of Aico TV for 2023. We hope you enjoyed the new look. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also like and subscribe to our other social media channels, which are
LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.